Happy Wednesday, Broncos country. We're back with another episode of Let's Talk Broncos. I'm Brie Maestas. I'm here with Zach Seegers and Joey Richards. Guys, how are you?
Doing really good. Excited about this conversation we have going on today. It relates. I'm big into the off-season type stuff. The Broncos right now, I don't think they have a ton to look forward to. So we're going to look forward a little bit in this episode to next season. And I want to get into that because that's really where I think our focus should be. So I'm excited about it. Zach, how do you feel?
Excited to be here, repping the GOAT, talking about what positions the Broncos need the most, how they need to start this rebuild off.
Let's go.
Not sure how they do it, but we're going to get into that next in what the Broncos positions need the most help. Who wants to start us off? I'm going to throw it on over to Zach. Who do you think? What position?
Well, guess what, guys? I lied during our pre-show meeting because just during Bree's intro, I realized there's a bigger position in need. So curveball, I'm not going to force myself to go on the defensive end. I'm going to go with running back. I think running back, it's not the most valuable position. I think it might be the biggest position in need. Like in terms of what position has absolutely nothing, it might be running back. And I know about Javonte Williams. I know he's a very, very talented runner, and I will not besmirch his name. However, I'm very concerned about how he's going to return from a multi-ligament knee injury. The best data on that I can find says that football players have a 30% chance of returning to form after a multi-ligament knee injury. 30-70, not great odds. That's really, really scary to me. And I also think if he's not returning to full form, I wonder what type of player Javonte Williams will be. We kind of talked about it yesterday, but a lot of his game is predicated on him being the amazing talent he is. Like he steps on the football field, he might be the most talented dude on the football field. Even as a rookie, that was the story. And that's why he wins reps because he's so phenomenally talented. But if this injury ends up robbing him of some of those talents, where is he? Because he doesn't have that old man rec ball game, you know? Like I'm concerned about what the multi-ligament knee injury might do for him.
Doesn't have that Frank Gore game.
It doesn't have that Frank Gore game. So that's a concern there. I love that comp. But that's a big concern for me. And then you also look at, of course, Melvin Gordon off the roster now. Latavius Murray, I wouldn't expect to be back next year. I believe is up. I'll look that up really quick. Chase Edmonds, they're going to cut him because that can save them some money. $6 million actually against the cap, so they're going to get rid of him. And then, Mike Boone's an upcoming free agent. So they've got Javonte Williams off a devastating injury, like truly devastating injury. And Divina Zigbo? Wait, no, they just waived Divina Zigbo. I don't know what I'm talking about. They've got nothing.
They did. Okay, they really don't. And that's why I guess if you're looking at it through that scope, or it's like what position are they the weakest at? Running back definitely has a good chance of being the answer there. Like, especially considering that Russell Wilson is so dependent on the run game. I think the best Russell Wilson we're going to see is with a dominant run game. Or the better the run game, the better Russell Wilson we will see. And we just haven't been able to have that this year. Obviously, with Latavius Murray, I doubt he's going to be back next year. I'm happy he's on the team right now. I think he's maybe one of the best that we could have got, but it's still not nearly good enough, and it really isn't. Zach, where would you rather address this? Through the draft or through free agency?
Oh, man, that's tough. I mean, I think in a perfect world, I'm doing it with one of those third-round picks. Broncos are going to have 2 high third-round picks in this year's draft. They've got a lot more premium needs, but like running back is an important one. And I'm really worried about Javonte Williams' long-term future, which is why I might not just go with an expensive vet like Josh Jacobs or whatever. I think you need a substantial investment in this room. And I prefer a substantial investment through the draft rather than a substantial investment in free agency. We know the history of free agent running backs. It's been very well documented. And mid-round running backs go on to be pretty dang productive when you hit on them. And I think you get well, I know you get 4 years of control. Plus, if they're really great, you can franchise tag them for 2 years. Even if they're not all that great, the running back franchise tag is really reasonable. So, yeah, a running back's shelf life might only be 6 years, but you can get 6 years of relatively cheap control on maybe a really talented running back. I don't think that's a terrible investment in assets, especially when your quarterback is especially reliant on the running back relative to other quarterbacks. So I think my ideal world would be you get a quality running back prospect at like that 67th, 70th pick, whatever it ends up being. And I know that's not a popular thing, but I really believe they need a talent infusion. That could also be a long-term answer and maybe an appealing piece for whoever the next Broncos quarterback is, because I think they need to move off Wilson sooner rather than later.
The juxtaposition to the conversations we were having when we first started Let's Talk Broncos prior to the draft kicking off was exactly this. There were concerns about the running back room, how it was going to exist prior to re-signing Melvin Gordon. Zach brought up specific concerns with the running back room and the depth there and whether or not that was a long-term solution. Turns out it was not. The Broncos moved on from Melvin Gordon. There's concerns, there's not enough depth there, but I think another position of need that falls in line with the one that we actually thought was pretty solid going into training camp this year for the Denver Broncos was wide receiver. Prior to Tim Patrick's injury, that didn't seem like such a bad deal there. You had Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, Kendall Hinton, Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil, and a couple of other names sprinkled in between that haven't been able to do much here with Russell Wilson at quarterback. Guys, wide receiver is going to be something that we're going to be talking about for a while, whether you like it or not, whether Broncos country has bought in on whether Jerry Jeudy is a long-term solution for wide receiver one. If Tim Patrick's return is going to bring him back to that same level of mobility that he was prior to. There's a lot of concerns here and there's a lot of question marks surrounding. How do you guys go about solving the wide receiver issue here for the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard. I really do think it's kind of tough to fix because I don't think you're in a position to pay a wide receiver one right now. With how many needs there are on offense, I don't think you can allocate the type of money that you would need to get that guy. In the draft, just me looking at the draft so far, I think there's a ton of complimentary wide receivers. I still need to be proven that there's going to be a true wide receiver one in this draft class. I really haven't seen that yet. But Bree, to your point about the need itself, just looking at this Denver Broncos roster, not only do we not have a dominant wide receiver one, I don't think we have any of those typical or prototypical Russ wide receivers on our team. When I think of Russ wide receivers, I'm thinking about those big, tall, and fast guys. We don't have a ton of them. And when I'm talking about really fast too. I'm looking for DKs. Demaryius Thomas is a name that comes to mind that would be fantastic with a Russell Wilson. Those type of guys that can win on the sideline, go catch the 50-50 balls while also being able to outrun people, take advantage of that Russell Wilson deep ball. We just don't have a ton of wide receivers that can. I think probably the closest thing we have is KJ Hamler, and I don't think you can put many eggs in his basket right now with his injury history. So I do think it's a big need. I just wonder how the Broncos go about getting that guy. I think your best option is probably attacking it on day 2. That's probably where I think your best option would be at wide receiver right now.
I don't know. I think if you can get a difference maker in the first round, that's one of the positions I'm definitely looking at in the first round. But yeah, you can find contributors at receiver, to your point, all up and down the draft. They just, wherever you can find the guy, go for it. How do they solve wide receiver? I think with a shotgun approach, just cast a wide net, because you need a lot. Jerry Jeudy, I think probably isn't on the Broncos in 3 years, if I'm being honest. I've campaigned for him and talked about how great he is. If I had to bet money, I'd say I don't expect him to be a long-term Bronco. I hope he is. I think he should be, but I bet he probably isn't. But that's the only guy I feel confident saying is an answer in the starting lineup right now. And I think he's a fine slot receiver. Cortland Sutton, I think you're looking to upgrade on. Though, to be honest, you can't with his contract. Everyone's hung up on the Russ deal. The Russ deal is like the Sutton deal is almost as hard to get out of. It is tough these next few years. It's not great. So I think you'd like to upgrade on him. Tim Patrick is probably the best receiver in the room, but coming off an ACL, considering he has a similar play style to Sutton, and we've seen what the ACL did to Sutton, I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch on Patrick's rehab. That's really concerning to me. So I think you could argue they need 3 starters. I like Kendall Hinton as a number 4 wide receiver, but I think he's probably just a really good number 4. I think if he's starting for you, you have wide receiver problems. KJ Hamler at this point, to me, looks like a burner off the bench, and that's a nice element to have in your offense. I think you can keep him till the end of his rookie contract, and it sucks, but I don't think he's going to be more than that. And you don't really have much behind it. Maybe one of these UDFAs turns into something, but I wouldn't bank on it. So you have to invest a lot. They can't afford a big name. Who knows with the wide receiver market how much these guys go for, but like DJ Chark, Jacoby Myers, Alan Lazard, Mac Hollins. He's probably going to get a good chunk of money this offseason, though.
Mac Hollins would be a good one, though.
Mecole Hardman, honestly, like give Russ a deep speed threat if you don't like Jalen Virgil, which they don't seem to, because the flashes are promising, but they aren't using him, which is frustrating. Noah Brown, like, he's not an exciting receiver, but he's been fine for the Dallas Cowboys this year. And like the Broncos just need some bodies. If you could get Noah Brown on like a $3 million deal, which seems reasonable, he's 27 and making 1.1 right now for the Cowboys, and he's had a good season. Let's say he boosts his value to 4 or 5. Like, I just do it. It might not be the best allocation of resources, but I feel kind of like the Jags last year when they spent a bag on Christian Kirk. And I hope the Broncos don't go that crazy with it. That was ill-advised. But, like, they just needed some bodies. And I kind of feel that way about the Broncos right now. Like, overpay for a $5 million guy, or a $3 million guy and pay him 5. And then spend, like Joey's saying, a few mid-round picks and hope you hit on 1 or 2 as even role players, because you need starters and you need role players.
Right. No, I agree. You do need role players, and I think that's a lot easier to get than the star right now. Just coming from a person that watched some of this draft class, like, I don't see the Jamar Chases. I don't see the Justin Jeffersons. I don't even see like the CeeDee Lamb type of prospects this year. I think it's going to be tougher this year to find that true wide receiver 1. While it's still deep, I think there's always going to be deep wide receiver classes. Finding that number 1 guy is kind of tough right now. I just don't see that person. Maybe Quentin Johnson at TCU, but I think he's going to go higher than the Broncos can draft. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a tough situation, being that the Broncos do have like average in their receiver room. They just don't have that dominant one to put them over the top.
I agree.
Very interesting. Joey, when are you and Frankie going to tackle that for the draft pod for wide receiver?
It will be tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Wide
for
receiver,
Thursday's episode?
Thursday's episode. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. I think we might split these wide receiver ones into 2 episodes just because there's so many wide receivers. We're going to tackle one and then we'll come back to another one later. There's so many. We're covering 2 different people. Frankie has a group of guys. I'm going to have a group of guys. It's going to be fun. There's just so many, all different types. Let me tell you, I love studying wide receivers because it's the only position where you can find a guy that's 6'5", that's 220 pounds, and then that can be really productive. And then also a guy that's 5'8", $180, who's also really productive. They all win in completely different ways. Some guys are so good at breaking tackles. Some guys are winning at the 50-50. Some guys are burners down the field. They win in so many different ways. It's a fun position to study. So I'm excited to get into it.
Fully agree with Joey. That's one of my favorites. I absolutely love wide receiver. They're great to study. Definitely going to be listening to that so I can start building up my watch list. That's what all Broncos country should be doing. Start eyeing these guys because they could totally go that direction in the first round this year. Like, you look at, we often talk about Broncos should take best offensive player available to them. The wide receiver classes tend to be a lot deeper. than the tackle classes, especially with Fashanu deciding to go back to school for a year.
Yeah, totally.
That's super exciting, and I'm looking forward to listening to it too because I'm interested to see what the Broncos could potentially do here in the draft. But a free agent signing would be interesting as well. My brain's not here yet, but I'm glad Joey and Frankie are focusing on that so we can talk and bring it directly to the LTB listeners. Joey, on that note, what position did you choose?
I think you could pick the entire offensive line, but I'm going to highlight offensive tackle. That's the position I think when you consider positional value, they're so hard to find, right? Like every team in the league could use a right tackle. It consistently comes up. Almost all the teams could. And that's a position of need for the Broncos. And I think that right tackle is so tough to find, and it's so valuable when you find one. That's probably my number one position of need for the Broncos. I think that there are some guys in this draft class too. While we don't have a Evan Neal in this draft class or one of these guys that just stands out from the rest, I think it's a really deep offensive tackle class, especially through that first round. There's plenty of guys. I think one team's offensive tackle 1 could be another team's offensive tackle 5 this year. You know what I mean? Like the rankings could be so all over the place, depending on scheme, depending on a lot of different stuff there. But yeah, I think that's the biggest area of need. When you look at it, Garrett Bowles, who knows what his future holds, especially coming off an injury, and then his cap hit is so big. The Broncos have an out this next offseason. Maybe he's not brought back. That right tackle position has been in turmoil forever. You know, it would be nice to have a long-term option there, although I do think it would be smart for the Broncos probably to bring back Cam Fleming this next year. It would be nice to have a long-term option there as well. Maybe even a guy you can develop if you bring in an offensive line coach you really like this offseason. Yeah, so I think that's my number one need. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I love it. Tackle's a big one. You look at right tackle, ever revolving door, as you pointed out. Left tackle is a concern now. Bulls is north of 30 and now is coming off a broken leg and was already showing signs of regression prior to the broken leg. That's a huge red flag to me. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos move off him this offseason. We've debated before if that's, the right thing to do. But I think it's undeniable that it's a possibility. Dalton Reisner, so long. They're going to find something else there. Lloyd Cushenberry, same thing. Quinn Miners is like the only piece that really feels cemented to me. And then like Graham Glasgow, they can free up $11 million by moving on from him. I bet they do. Who else do they have coming up? Billy Turner's a free agent. Calvin Anderson's a free agent. Tom Compton, Bigfoot is a free agent. Cam Fleming, as Joey mentioned, is a free agent. So yeah, I think you can easily argue it's the biggest point of need, especially when you look at a guy like Russell Wilson, who probably needs someone who can buy him time in the pocket because he can't escape the same way and he still needs a lot of time back there.
Totally. It's a big deal. I hope the Broncos are able to tackle it.
Tackle it.
Tackle it. I know, right? No pun intended. I do think, though, that not even just a tackle. I think if you're looking for a right-away move, a guy that could come in and play right away, the Broncos should probably attack a lot of that offensive line in free agency, right? Vets are just going to be better right away than the rookies are. They take time to develop. Offensive line coach is massive for development. These guys aren't able to hit in practice like they were used to. It's not like wide receivers, cornerbacks, all these positions. They pretty much run and do what they do in a game in practice. A lot of it translates. Offensive linemen, with how physical it is up there, and they're just not able to do the same things, it's harder for them to develop nowadays. I think that's why we're seeing a big issue, especially with depth and how many good offensive linemen there are, is just because they don't get to practice as much. So I think vet is probably the best one option there. Elton Jenkins comes to mind. There are some other people there, but I don't know. It goes hand in hand. I want the Broncos to find a long-term answer, but I also want the Broncos, if they keep Russell Wilson for next year, to be a lot more competitive. So you could go either way, I guess.
I'd really hope to see some progression in the offensive line depth, as we've seen a ton of injuries pile up for the Denver Broncos along that line that have just led to absolute chaos for any sort of movement there with the offense. I don't think it can get necessarily worse, but I do think you're right, pointing specifically to bringing some vets in. That's super important for assignments and how you see the line in general gel with each other. You've already got a lot of youthful exuberance along that line that you're hoping starts to click here shortly. And outside of Quinn Miners, not a whole lot of stuff is going that direction. Yeah, I feel good about that. Any other positions you want to touch on?
Um,
Fantastic. Oh, Joey, I was like, no, you're good.
Damn, I mean, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I wanted to just highlight before we get out of here. You could literally draft any position on offense. You can literally sign any position on offense. I literally think whether it's depth or starter, you need help everywhere. I think the Broncos could probably use a better backup quarterback. They could probably use a better starting quarterback, although that's a little, I think that's a little more unrealistic with the Peyton situation right now. But all the positions are needs on offense. If you wanted to look at defense, maybe even some corner depth would be nice to have. Safety maybe with Caden Stern's injury, Kareem Jackson getting older. Just honorable mentions I had to throw out there as well.
Yeah, and if I'm the Broncos, I'm investing so much in offense with these draft picks. Like, I'm going all out. One, it's all about making Russ work. And two, set it up well for the next quarterback, which I think is going to happen sooner rather than later. Like, screw this building up a good defense thing. Like, let's be bad 35-40. I'd love to be bad 35-40 instead of 13-16.
Can I name a big one though, real quick, that I think is actually realistic?
Mm-hmm.
Depth in the interior defensive line is a big issue right now. I really think that. I think the Broncos absolutely need depth in that interior defensive line. Better players to be able to come in because it's a rotation, and you see the Broncos getting ran on like they do, and I think a lot of it is because of that. So I think – and that's attainable. I think you could get them at a lower rate. If you want to get some run defender type guys, go and get them. I think that's something the Broncos can tackle this year without hurting anything they want to do on offense. Depth in the interior defensive line. Just punch that one home.
I like it, Joey. Can I bring up something to you guys that has been kind of on my mind and it's plaguing me a little bit because we don't necessarily get to talk about it because it's not really like I don't care. It's not really something that we get into when we talk about certain subjects here on Let's Talk Broncos. But because the Denver Broncos defense has been so absolutely dominant this season, and it was, trending that way last year, the offense being this bad and unbalanced worries me a little bit, as a lot of the emphasis on trying to restructure and reinforce the offense, and the team will it'll go in that direction. So a lot of the emphasis will come off of defense. At least I'm hoping it doesn't go that way. Are there any potential concerns? And this can just be a quick issue or quick discussion about, if the defense is already so good and it's really kind of out of sight, out of mind, I don't want them to fall off the radar and not enough depth pieces be picked up as the years start to pile on here, right? Because we're really worried about the offense performing, but those defensive players aren't going to be around forever.
I'm fine with it. I'm fine with the defense dropping off. It's all about the quarterback. Broncos can't figure out the quarterback. And I think surrounding the quarterback with offensive talent, whether it be the next young guy, whether it be Russell Wilson, whatever, makes it more likely the Broncos can figure out quarterback. And that's all again, I think it'll make him better, but also let's see a different type of bad team. The Broncos, let's not forget, this 7 years of Broncos misery has happened during the greatest era of offensive football in NFL history. And we've been stuck watching 16 points a game for 7 years, while every other fan base is averaging 25 points a game. It's crazy. Let's have a team that puts up 30 and allows 40 for once. That would be a nice change of pace for me. I would welcome it. Let the defense go into disrepair. I'd love to have a different problem to talk about. Go all in on offense. That's what I'm here for. I think you've got a lot of talent on there to be fine on defense. And also the thing about building a good defense, it's not sustainable. Defensive variance changes so much year to year. Offense is always more sustainable in the NFL. It's a more sustainable path to success. Go all in on offense, Denver, because this shit is exhausting for me.
It's more sustainable though because of one position. Like one position makes a huge, massive,
and the offensive line and stuff. I think and wide receiver and wide receiver. No, because it's like more based on unit than like just one player, and the offensive line and then wide receiver is a less has less variance as a position group than like cornerback.
I think that mostly though, because the most important position in football is quarterback. If you have a Justin Herbert or
definitely, that's the number one factor.
Quarterback, it's going to raise your floor on your offense dramatically. There's not one position on defense that does that, like the quarterback position does. If you have an elite quarterback, you can keep that elite quarterback around for 15 years. More than likely, your offense is going to be at least productive.
No, that's the number one factor.
Yeah.
For sure.
So it's I don't know. Yeah, Bree, you make a great point. I think that's the ultimate question in the NFL. It's like if I put a little, you heard the Chris Ballard talk about it this year for the Colts. He was like, "You guys have been telling me all year to draft a wide receiver. I draft one, and now we have offensive line issues." You know, it's hard to find the balance, the right mixture of offense, defense. But to Zach's point, you do want at some point to just be like, hey, this Broncos offense is literally unplayable right now. Like, we're not going to win games with a Broncos offense playing like this. You need to say, we can take a step back on defense to improve on offense because this just will not work. So, yeah.
Would rather be middle of the pack in both categories than outweighed at the level that we are right now. It's just a little too much here. I did want to move on to happier news, though, because we've got to talk about signables. It's almost that time, LTB listeners. Christmas is right around the corner, and a really exciting game just happened here for the World Cup yesterday with USA making some moves. I've been watching a little bit of soccer. Hopefully you have been too. And if you'd like to pick up a signable of your favorite player, I've got news for you. So we wanted to tell you a little bit about signables, a cool new way to display your fanhood in your office, home, or fan cave. Signables are flat footballs with digitally printed signatures on them of your favorite players. They're a great gift for your favorite football fan this holiday season. Collect your favorite player or your favorite team at signables.com. I think Zach is pointing to his.
Do it, or you're just like I don't know what you're doing. If you don't own one by now, I mean, we've been on here how long screaming it. I vouch for this product. This is a product that we all own. Bree, Zach, Joey, we all own assignables. Me personally, I'm going to go with the Joe Burrow one out of the people. I've been vouching for the Von Miller. We need a Von Miller signables. When that comes, I might buy all of them. You guys might not even have one. So, yeah, I think that it's perfect for Christmas. Get it for anyone that's football, not even just football. We got the soccer. You know, we go cross sports. This is just new into the football here. So, yeah, I think you need to buy assignables. Do yourself a favor and buy one.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. I'm not going to provide an answer. If you were, to go over to one of your friends' houses and, notice that, heaven forbid, they don't have a Christian Pulisic signable, wouldn't you think that, I don't know, maybe they hate America? Throwing that out there.
Probably. I think so, me personally.
I thought that was Joey's question of the day.
All right, Joey's question of the day. All right. So there are a lot of rumors swirling around in Colorado sports, specifically one that really, really gets me excited. My question is, how excited on a scale of 1 to 10 would you guys be if Deion Sanders primetime came to CU Boulder to be their head football coach? And then I also want to ask how likely you think it is.
Okay, can I go first so that I don't ruin your I don't like to get my hopes up anymore revolving around any Colorado football. So I'm just not until it happens, I'll celebrate, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. Damn. Go ahead, Zach.
I think it's pretty dang likely. I think you look at he wants to upgrade from Jackson State. Jackson State is a lower level FCS job. He wants to upgrade from there. His options for doing so are USF and CU. It's going to be one of those two jobs. All the USF reporters have been reporting since Tuesday that they're going with the Coastal Carolina, I think his name's Jamie Chadwell, the Coastal Carolina coach, and not Deion Sanders. It is sounding like Deion Sanders, and they are projecting Deion Sanders to go to CU. We know CU has offered Deion. I think there's a chance Deion goes somewhere else, of course, but right now I think Deion's the heavy favorite to be the next Colorado football head coach, and that'd be a game changer. You look at what he's done for recruiting. Again, Jackson State, small FCS program, and not in an appealing area. Let's be real. Jackson, Mississippi is not heaven, is not oasis. And he got Travis Hunter, one of the best high school prospects of the last half decade, to commit to State. A bad FCS team in the middle of nowhere, or not in the middle of nowhere, but in the middle of an unappealing city. I think he could work wonders for the Buffs. Yes, it's just going to be a stop for him. Don't complain about 3 years of fun because it's only 3 years of fun. Enjoy 3 years of fun. You're a Colorado Buffaloes fan. 3 years of fun does not come around often. Joey, take it away.
Yes. He also heard that Warren Sapp said he would love to coach with Deion and coach their D line. Go on that. Go along with him. 2 Hall of Famers coaching at CU Boulder would be so exciting. I've never even really been a huge CU fan. I just want good college football in the state of Colorado. We deserve this. It's been terrible for so long, even longer than the Broncos have been bad. We want this. Imagine if you're a D lineman, you're like, my head coach could be Deion Sanders, and then I get to learn under Warren Sapp. Like, come on. It doesn't get much better than that. Deion Sanders sitting on your family's couch trying to get you to go to college, like go play football for him. He's going to be fantastic recruiter, and I don't care where it is in the country. He could go anywhere and pull fantastic athletes. I think it would be awesome. It would bring an excitement to the state of Colorado college football that we have not seen in a really, really, really long time. And I don't know. My excitement level is a 10. Do I think it happens? It's around an 8. That's on my 1 to 10 there.
I'm with him. It's lockstep.
Yeah, I want it to happen so bad. Maybe there's a little hope in there. Maybe. It would get me so excited, though. I would literally go to CU games with Zach, who is an alumni, quite often. If he invited me, I would be there every time.
Look at Prime single-handedly saving the CU athletic department there for at least for football.
Ooh, a tweet from Tyler Columbus I hadn't seen yet.
I saw
I have refused to let me get my hopes up, or let my I have refused to let my hopes get up with Deion to CU. However, after a few phone calls today, this is 2 days ago, I believe it is more likely than unlikely that he is coming to CU. Interesting.
It is really interesting.
Let's go.
Guys, where can everybody find your stuff?
Everyone follow me at JR Drafts. Make sure you're listening to Frankie and I's draft podcast tomorrow. We are talking wide receivers, pass catchers, exciting position. If you like excitement, you're going to like this one. I said it earlier, but wide receiver is one of those positions that's so much fun because you have all these different types of ways you can win. You can win just being really fast and beating people deep. You can win with your route running. You can win being elite at breaking tackles and being a yards after catch receiver. There's so many different ways you can win. You have 6'5" guys. You have 5'8" guys, 225-pound guys, 175-pound guys. And we're going to be breaking down the best wide receivers in this draft class tomorrow. And if that's something you want to hear about, make sure you're following the Let's Talk Broncos pages, especially if you're listening on the Mile High Sports right now. You have to move over to the Let's Talk Broncos pages to listen to this content. Again, tomorrow, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Be there for sure. Be there.
Zach.
Yeah, go check that out. You got to go listen to the Joey and Frankie show, learn about those wide receivers. Hopefully we rolled out the red carpet some for them today. Deion Sanders, come to Colorado. It's beautiful. Mile High Sports for articles, Zach_Seegers on Twitter for short stuff.
Follow me over on Twitter, BreeMaces303, and catch me talking Broncos every single day with these guys. We'll catch you. You'll have all three of us back for Friday's episode, where we'll start to dive into the Ravens game, but you need to tune in Thursday tomorrow for Joey Richards and Frankie Abbott. It's going to be a tremendous show. I'll be watching along with all of you in the chat, creating conversation and discussion, and we'll catch you real soon right here on Mile High Sports or the Let's Talk Broncos page. Good night, everybody.